5:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank everyone for coming this evening. Any new agenda items for the agenda by any chance?
No.
Anybody? Okay. All right. City licenses, you can see the ones listed there. Need to move past that. Then we're ready for the adoption of the consent agenda. Any questions about the consent agenda from my colleagues?
Good.
Good. Entertain a motion then to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 5 is items for commission action. And so the first one is consider the ADA transition plan.
Yes, Mayor. Sean Turner's here. They've been working, him and Dave Cowan have been working on this ADA transition plan. As you know, the city went through an order required to do ADA upgrades, which they've completed or satisfied the federal government in that regard, and now we're doing our transition plan because we have a lot more to do, but we obviously can't afford to do them all in 1 year. But anyway, Sean's here to answer any of your questions.
Yes, David had put together a few slides for a public presentation, so we can run through those that basically discuss some of the progress to date. But on the first slide, as it indicates, there's been over 1,000 sidewalk ramps completed. You can move on, Kelly. And then that is an example of what we call a simple ramp, which are the majority of them. And the next slide is an example of a switchback, which is a fairly complicated ramp. There's been a number of other improvements, Emerson Field, and then the city has added 17 parking spaces downtown. Regarding the transition plan, it was originally a requirement of the DOJ consent order, but you have been released from that. So there's this document hanging out there. So what we've done is we've added projects to the original transition plan that have been designed but not constructed yet. And a few of those are, or the majority, the largest ones are Kitty Land. There's a plan for improving Kitty Land to make it ADA accessible. The next one is what I call the Black Bear Trail, which is the sidewalk back to down to the Black Bear exhibit. The next one is parking around the Oval. Those are 3 of them at the zoo that have been designed and not constructed. So when we went back through the transition plan, which was originally intended for downtown, we added a schedule to complete these projects. And again, this should be viewed as a living document. It can be modified at any time, and there is no longer a requirement for the city to even formally adopt this. It's just basically a document for guidance. On page 22, there's a list of projects. In the green, we divided up that work at the zoo. A project that the city, talking with city staff, they felt that was affordable and probably very beneficial would be the curb ramps on the Oval to make those. There are ramps and parking there now, but they're not ADA. They do not meet ADA. So that we've estimated at about $45,000 to complete that, and we've put that in 2018. And then, rather arbitrarily, I chose a schedule to complete the rest of those, and we've also stated in the transition plan that the city is examining areas for grants to possibly help fund those. and that schedule can be changed at any time. If you move down into the blue, we talked some with city staff about adopting a yearly program to address complaints regarding ADA ramps and sidewalks. So we're assisting the city staff in putting together a package of projects right now that basically just looks at that list that Kelly and David have been compiling, and it's a pretty long list of complaints they have, and other areas in town that may connect. It's just, you recall that the grants the city received could be used for access ramps, but they couldn't be used for sidewalks. So there's a lot of blocks that have access ramps, and there's bad pieces of sidewalk between those ramps. So we're looking at a project that would help connect that all better also. So we're kind of packaging that up right now, and then we'll meet with city staff to discuss that. But we've been given that target amount of around $200,000 to try to look at options for projects that amount. And then in subsequent years, we've just placed a dollar amount of $50,000 a year. And again, this is a living document that can be modified at any time to change that. We've just put a placeholder for City Hall ADA improvements and citizen influx. And we've also, on the downtown sidewalks and ramps, just listed that and documented that those will be replaced as failure occurs, like was originally submitted to the DOJ before they released the city from the consent order. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Well, in your transition plan, you had addressed the parking areas, that the aisle spaces mandated to be 1 in 48, and you talked about in your map the item that needed to be addressed. Well, then in the letter where it talks about addressing the issues with the sidewalk as they fail, well, we've got ramps with parking areas that don't comply, and then we've got sidewalks that have too much cross slope. It looks like that we've kind of got the cart before the horse in some cases, that it doesn't make logic of our planning. That
When you say that you're referring to the 1 to 48 cross slope, are you talking about the cross slope of the roadway?
that's what you identified in
Yeah,
the transition plan. Let's see.
Yeah, that also, the roadway would be replaced when failure occurs. That's really the only economical way for that to take place.
But when you've got to readjust the elevation of a curb to reduce the cross slope, or how are you going to address, like the ramp that's going in now, with the crown of the street, it slopes to the curb. So to level out the parking area, you're going to have to elevate the gutter. And
Well,
that elevates.
I guess I would envision more that the roadway would be replaced at a lesser slope than we would be changing the gutter elevation. I think it'd be difficult to change the gutter elevation just due to the drainage requirements and problems that would occur.
But then in that case, with the crown and the angle of the street, you would have to put a dip down to level it out, or you've got to tear out the whole street and rebuild a street.
Yeah, I think that the answer is rebuilding the street when it occurs, full depth replacement. I don't see any other way to do that, to take care of that cross slope issue. So when failure occurs, that street would be full depth, would be replaced at full depth.
Yeah, it seems like the $2 million isn't even going to come close when you start addressing issues like that.
When you use the term failure occurs, what's that term mean?
Well, when failure occurs, what I'm talking about is when that sidewalk has deteriorated to the point it needs replaced, then it will be replaced to meet ADA standards.
So then the street, when it fails, so to speak, then you, other than do like we're doing on Penn Street, which is grind and re-asphalt it, grind it off and re-asphalt it, you'd have to do other more extensive work, is that it?
Yes, do a full depth replacement to satisfy that cross slope requirement. Yes, and I don't think there's any other way to do that, and without creating a significant amount of drainage issues.
Okay. Other questions? Gary, you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
What about the accessible routes? They weren't identified from the parking lots from Chestnut and the 6th Street going to the business areas. Are those not needing, there wasn't any notation of parking for those lots? Are those excluded from compliance to ADA?
They're not excluded from compliance. The area we targeted for our examination of downtown was what was originally in the DOJ order. There may be areas outside that there are areas outside that we didn't look at.
Yeah, I thought those parking lots were identified too in the proposal for transition plan.
I'm pretty sure we covered the areas that was in that DOJ order. I didn't specifically look at those myself, but another engineer did.
You might take a look back, because I think those two lots were identified. We talked about even some accessibility from the Chestnut when the sidewalk north, the south side of Chestnut from Penn to 8th Street. There was a proposal to do some sidewalks, but the cost was too high at that time. But
So with this transition plan, Sean, if, there's a letter that states that we need to adopt a plan that shows that we're continuing to work on the ADA issues in the city. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the budget, the plan that you presented here is just a plan that can be modified whenever we need for it to be modified, so that we can meet the needs or whatever.
That's exactly.
Other issues that come up. So, I mean, is there some sort of matrix or something that is out there then that says that we have to spend this much money per year, or is that all at the commission's discretion?
It's all at the commission's discretion. What was required by the DOJ order, and you're not under that anymore, but was to develop a system to track complaints and to respond to those complaints is really the biggest part of that the city needs to keep up. And the city's doing that. Kelly and David have kept track of number of complaints. We're coming back with a project for the city to consider. You don't have to fix all those complaints in this project, but if you don't, we just need to put them on the schedule for future years and adjust the schedule. So.
Okay. All right. With that, any more questions, Larry?
no, my concern is that when we go forward, that we comply and not redo work. That we've chased a rabbit for a long time, many years doing ADA, and the difference between the ADA and a building code is that the ADA is a law, and the law has fines and judgments that can be passed for denying someone access. And when we have a street that was put in after 92, which in 99 the sidewalks were put in and we redid the curb and gutter, that we've opened ourselves to situations of non-compliance. So anything being done needs to be in compliance with current ADA standards. And, it's just a battle of dollars. When you look at the total, we need to be as efficient and do it once, not multiple times. And, we don't want to get back with a complaint being filed
Right.
and having another issue with DOJ.
Okay, Gary? All right. I entertain a motion then that we approve the downtown ADA transition plan. Would there be a motion?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Been moved and seconded that we approve the downtown ADA transition plan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Item B is consider bids received for demolition of the following previously condemned structures.
Yeah, those are the 5, you can see the bids there. The total cost of all the low bids would cost $16,900 for the 5 properties. See Don here, so.
And we make it clear in the bid package that we will accept the low bid on each one, not the lowest total bid.
Yeah, that's why if you add the lowest total bids,
Right.
it comes up to that, our cost would be that amount.
So everybody will get a little something on this one.
But it was noted in the instructions to bidders that we will be selecting and that it won't be bid as a package.
Yes.
Okay.
We have made that clear. And I've talked to 2 of them, and I know that Don's talked to G&G, so.
Okay. So then procedurally, we would have to accept each bid, Jeff, or would we just need to approve the
We
low
could-
bid?
Award them as a group.
For a little bit of each instance.
Okay. Would there be a motion then that we approve the low bid for each of the 5 properties as presented with the breakout, the bid tabulation sheet that we have there?
Sure. I'll move that we award the bids for demolition to the low bidder for each of the 5 properties listed.
I'd second that motion. All those, it's been moved and seconded, and then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, number C, consider setting the date of September 28, 2017 at 5:30 PM for a public hearing to consider adoption of the North Penn neighborhood revitalization plans.
Exactly. That sums it up very nicely. You're just setting the date for that public hearing and then consider the adoption of the revitalization plan. Kelly probably answer more detailed questions about this. I understand it was in motion once before and then got derailed for whatever reason. So we're bringing it back. Kelly's been putting it back together specifically for some development in this area.
As I recall, that was to include some areas that weren't originally identified. Is that correct, Kelly?
No, actually, the only thing that was modified was some language that the county wanted included.
Okay.
We went through to all the interlocal groups, and it was approved until we got to the county, and then they wanted to change the language. So
Okay.
we basically had to kind of start all over on this one.
Was it just regarding the delinquencies? And or was
That
more-
It also had to do
That's-
with the using the past appraisal amount over like a 3-year average. And then also the delinquencies previously was only covered in Independence if they were delinquent.
Right.
Now it's for the whole county.
Yeah.
So those are the major changes. Everything else is basically the same as what you saw before, other than we did update the values.
Okay. So it was the appraisals then, that was the issue.
Well, that and the delinquent
And delinquent
taxes
tax.
for the whole county and not just Independence.
It's a very specific area in Independence, though. So we're
Yes.
saying if the property owner in that area owns other property in the county which is delinquent,
Yes.
they're no longer eligible.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what the county wanted.
Okay.
Because it does impact the total revenue for the county, and it only makes, it seemed like it made good sense to me that if they're not going to be current on other property, then they should not gain a benefit in this district. It's probably something we need to look as the other areas mature, that we make the same revisions. And also the 3-year historical average, it takes into account if a building is raised and the prior year the taxes drop, and it gives a little more accurate picture of what the tax base on the new project would be for the life, the 5 and the 10-year phases.
And also, this map shows some of the recent ones that were adopted. And as you can see, the proposed one butts up right next to the downtown one that was already adopted.
All right. Entertain any further questions, Bob? Okay. Entertain a motion then that we set the date of September 28, 2017 at 5:30 PM for public hearing to consider adoption of the North Penn Neighborhood Revitalization Plans.
So moved.
Maybe a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. This goes through the whole process again, Kelly?
Yes, we have to
Goes-
start
yes.
all over.
Okay. All right, reports. There's board minutes from the Historic Preservation Board in our packet from June 27th, July 11th, Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, and July 19th, Recreation Commission. Any questions, comments, thoughts on any of those? Okay, I don't see, well, commission comments first. Jerry?
No, thank you.
Yeah, I do. Concerning our budget, you know, for commissioner's duty, and this is just, I'm throwing this out for us to discuss or to consider. You know, it seems like our responsibility for the budget is the most important that we have. And when it comes to budget time, unfortunately, with 3 commissioners, we can't visit individually to go over and discuss the budget. So we're limited to discussion within our meetings. And, you know, looking into the future to address some of the issues we've had for the last 3 or 4 years, we're always rushed. And it's more of an emergency that we don't have time to share and to discuss it among ourselves. It's just presented, and here we have to act. And, you know, this will be the 3rd year we've increased the mill levy. You know, the first year we increased the mill levy 4 mills for the $3 million bond we might have had. And last year we had that, plus we increased 5 mil for the surplus that we all agreed we needed to consider. And now this year we're looking at another 1 mil increase. And
It's actually, isn't it 7/10? Or is-
At 7/10, the levy itself is going down
That's,
because the evaluation of the properties went down. The mill rate did go up 70 basis points, but the levy itself overall is less taxes will be levied upon the citizens.
well, that's, you know, I was looking at us, that we need time to consider that we're going to have to start looking at an earlier presentation that we can have time to review and study. I appreciate now we have the brochure that we can look at for Monday night, and I know that this year is very unusual.
I was going to say
that
that
we-
we were behind the 8 ball because Craig didn't get here until June
Change
8th.
the 2
Yeah.
key positions, but, you know, in the future with only 3 commissioners, we need to have more time that we can share ideas and to consider direction, because some of the things coming up that we've got, you know, with the rate increase, you know, our rate study was delayed. Now we're dealing with rate increases that we get it incorporated into the budget that we are so tight that we don't have time to really explore and to explain. Looking at the transition from the steering committee, their report, the funding of that. We do have the special use sales tax money for ADA and facility improvements to renovate. We've got a lot coming on our table, and sometimes it's hard to grasp all this in a short period of time. And, if the budget is our responsibility and is ours, I feel we need to have an opportunity, either a work session, to sit down and share our ideas and our understanding, because each of you have talents that you bring to the commission that I'd like to hear your opinion to. So I think three minds come with a better solution than just one, and sometimes we don't have that benefit because of the limited commissioners, and we're forced to jump instead of reason and get a good, clear direction. We're jumping from fire to fire, and I think one of the things I see from where we went to where we are now, that now we really have an opportunity to set goals into the future and set a plan that 5, 6 years, 10 years down the road, I think with Craig's assistance, we can set up a direction that will go on after his term and our terms, that we can create something usable for the future. And I'm concerned with our approach to the budget the last few years.
Yeah, I thought the one work session we had was very effective and well done, well planned, but it wasn't enough. I mean, but again, we got such a late start. I wish we could start in, I don't know, February or something.
Craig, you and I have had some extensive discussions about how you go about this with a more extensive, longer-term look at it. So you might explain some of those.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Of course, we did have a shortened time frame, but even with the shortened time frame, I don't know if you recall, but when we put that together, from a staff perspective, I think I said as often as you want to meet up until the time of adoption, we'd be happy to do that. Whether it's more work sessions or whatever, we put together a schedule that had a couple of like. Tomorrow, I put that on the schedule just in case, or Monday and Tuesday. And at the time of the schedule, I was under the impression that you had to adopt it by the 15th. Well, not really. You have to have the hearing by the 15th. You can adopt it right up until you have to submit it to the county on the 25th. So there's lots of time, but you could do that. But in a normal budget preparation year, yeah, we would be starting with developing our capital plans early on in the year in April. Mike and I haven't talked about exactly, but that'd be a typical schedule. Start there. Would typically present that first, and then we would put together a budget just like we did. We'd put together a proposed budget, and then it would be presented to you as we did. And then again, we could have as many work sessions to go over the budget as you wish. So next year it'll be much more drawn out, if you will, more time to do it anyway. But we still have time this year if you want to, with work sessions and so forth. We obviously can discuss it further.
Because sometimes what I like is the way it was presented, and then we get the data, then maybe we could have a work session, us, to discuss and to evaluate, because there's two ways: either you list everything you want and determine how much you're going to need, or you look at here's how much money we got and then reverse budget. There's different ways to do it, and there's a lot of things, not only for us in the city, I think we have to consider, but the county is under the schools, that we have a limited base of people, and we all need to look at operating as efficiently as possible. And, I think that the time of sharing, it's good that if we could have those times of have a presentation and then let us sit down and discuss and share, then maybe take the questions back to staff and come back to us with answers at that dialogue. So we're making sure that we're not doing the best we can, but we're involved, that we understand and representing the citizens the way we should be. So that was my concern and comment.
Okay. So I'm a little confused by what your comments say here, Leonard. Are you saying that we have the hearing Monday? You want to proceed with the hearing Monday? Is that what you're saying or not?
No, I think if it's advertised, we can hear. We've got to have, the hearing gives us the opportunity to let the public speak to their concerns
That's fine. And
about it.
and that's what that's all about.
With it's published, we can't raise, but we can reduce.
That's
So
correct.
we can still go forward with the hearing and get public comment, and then we can consider that, since, at the 25th, it gives us a little flexibility. But, I think go ahead with the hearing Monday. It's set, it's advertised.
We have to have it. We have
It's,
to have it
uh,
Monday. I don't have time to publish
right.
it again.
And I wasn't indicating
Yeah.
not to
That's-
have that.
That's,
No, I was
yeah.
not talking about
Okay.
that. I'm glad you clarified that. 'Cause
Yeah.
no, that wasn't what I was suggesting.
Okay. All right. Public concerns, I don't have anything. Mike, you didn't receive anything, did you? Okay. I don't believe we have any executive sessions that you're aware of. With that, tonight sets a record. We're done at 6:02, according to this. So I would entertain a motion then to adjourn the meeting.
So make a motion.
I stuck with my first.
It's been moved and seconded. Who moved? Leonard?
Who second?
I did.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we'll sign our papers and go home.
Wow. Really fast.